the aftermath of COVID, history may well look upon Daniel Andrews as a hero and not a villain. However, the events of history, as we have seen over the years, can be distorted. Glowing and still glowing from the spoils of more than 30 days of double donuts, it's questionable for the Andrews government in Victoria to suggest it has eradicated COVID. COVID has been suppressed, yes, but eradicated, no. Viruses can't be eradicated, at least not without appropriate vaccines. And even the issue surrounding vaccines raises even more questions, especially around how they're being rushed through by Big Pharma at the moment without the proper testing and efficacy or any understanding about the long-term effects they may have without the appropriate development time. There's much that we need to question, and yet many appear to be accepting the narrative that by its nature is even more concerning. It's also, I think, irresponsible to have members within the medical community actually advocating COVID's eradication. COVID is here to stay. The Andrews government, like most state governments across Australia, has been engaged in pandemic politics. Anastasia Palaszczuk, Queensland's most interesting premier, used COVID to get great effect. She not only used COVID to shore up her power base, but she used it and played the politics of fear with it. She scared Queenslanders into believing if Queensland's borders weren't closed, then Queenslanders could face imminent death. Now, it's a line that many Queenslanders bought into, and it's the same line that Victorians and West Australians have been delivered for the better part of the last, I think, 6 months. Pandemic politics, as it's known, is dishonest, and it has been used as a control measure. It's been done to control Victorians, Queenslanders, South Australians, Tasmanians, and West Australians into believing the doom was awaiting them. The truth is, it wasn't. And yet, only New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian has proved to be the more pragmatic, the more practical politician and a purveyor of positivity. The doom of COVID never allowed to overcome New South Wales or its citizens. For Victoria, though, all the doom was exacerbated by the mismanagement of the Andrews government, which made a much bigger impact on Victorians than COVID. Berejiklian's common sense approach, her considered strategic policy making, really helped to minimise COVID's impact on the people of New South Wales. She did it and continues to do it successfully. But there seems to be a new playbook, one that many of Australia's premiers right across the country, and territory chiefs in fact, have chosen to adhere to. It's the playbook of deceit. It's been designed to shore up their political power rather than provide good, honest government. Victorians have suffered immensely because of their government's poor decision making, some of its stupidity, its bungling and mismanagement. Queenslanders haven't really suffered, neither have South Australians nor Tasmanians, who have remained relatively unscathed. West Australians have had practically no cases to deal with, while Victoria's economy was truly decimated and ravaged by Premier Andrews' bungling. But amongst all this pandemic politics that Andrews, Palaszczuk, Hodgman, Marshall and McGowan were happy to engage in, Berejiklian has been the one who stood alone above the dishonesty of these practitioners of pandemic politics. Berejiklian has been the beacon for New South Wales. She's guided the #1 state in Australia and shown its citizens that fear would never be used to control the people of New South Wales. Her narrative, based very simply on caution, on common sense and pragmatism. Now, if history is to be written and a real hero is to emerge, then history should remember the role played by Gladys Berejiklian. While the rest of Australia's premiers and territory chiefs danced to the tune of pandemic politics and dabbled in the politics of darkness and fear, Gladys Berejiklian has shone a torch for both hope and for reason. Gladys has triumphed where the likes of Andrews, Palaszczuk, McGowan and Marshall have been more intent to openly politicise COVID. Daniel Andrews is not a real hero, nor are Palaszczuk, Marshall, McGowan or Hodgman. They're simply political opportunists who have managed to exploit the COVID crisis to spread fear. The collateral damage that Daniel Andrews has actually affected on Victoria has been quite simply devastating. It's not heroism, more a case of openly political, economic and social terrorism. And you know what? COVID still remains.